Hi guys, so welcome to another episode of my final year project diaries. If you're new around here, this is my final year project. I'm working on a circuit simulation software that's based on NGSpice, and I'm using Python, pyqt to actually do this. Right, yeah, I think that's basically it. My final year project, I think it's a big project when you consider it. But anyway, for those of you who have been here every time, I owe you guys an apology because I've been MIA for a while now. By a while, I mean like 3 days. And the app you are seeing on your screen right now is way different from what it was like 3 days ago. That's like the reason why I'm sorry anyway. Like, the thing is that I've been building offline, not on camera, for some time now because I feel like the videos are getting really long and I'm like, it's getting boring because I have to like figure stuff out on camera. So I figured I could figure everything out offline, then I'll come and show you guys what I've done. Basically like putting myself out there. Like I said from the beginning, it's not a tutorial or anything. I'm just showing you guys what I'm doing to keep you guys updated. Right. So yes, the app is looking way different, and should I say better compared to how it was, but it's still work in progress, right? Like right now you can see that you can rotate stuff, like you can select a component, the attributes of the component to show over here. You can make changes to that attributes, like I don't know, maybe this should be 50 rather, and as you can see it is reflecting on here. I mean, it's not really big though. I should actually implement a zoom feature in here. That reminds me. Right, you can change the unit and stuff here. You can search a component like voltage source. That also works, which I implemented yesterday. I mean, all of these have been implemented now, right? You can rotate a component, right, and connect them like usual. Select the wire to, even the wire tool, I ended up making it an icon instead of just the text over there. I mean, you can do all of this, and then you can also like click on simulate, and then the simulation will be done, right? All of these I have implemented. But the thing is that I've done a lot within this past few days, and I just want to like show you guys what I've been up to, basically. So in the last video that I actually made, we were about to actually start something on the simulation backend. So I'll start from there. So inside my simulation backend, we have created this circuit simulator class. This circuit simulator class, which essentially takes in all the components from the canvas and the circuit nodes from the canvas. In the previous video, we were keeping track of the circuit nodes anytime the user actually makes a connection, right? So all of those things we've done, and also with that in mind, when I take that, I sort of like extract the information that I get from that, because if you want to simulate a circuit, you only need the components and the nodes that each component is connected to. So I extract that and then put that in some component information. Then with that information, I create a pyqt circuit, which basically is a way of you creating the circuit. Like you define the structure of the circuit, sort of like the net list of the circuit. So I identify the nodes that each component is connected to, and I create it. If it's a resistor, I create like a resistor node to a circuit. If it's a voltage source, I create a voltage source node, right? Like this, and I specify the nodes, the value, and the unit as specified by the data I get from the nodes. Right, so when a person clicks on simulate, what essentially I do is to create an instance of this class and call the simulate function of that instance. So the simulate function will then create the pyqt circuit, create a simulator, simulate the circuit, and then try and get results from the analysis that's been made. And the get result function over here is just a way of me processing the results I get from the simulation. So this actually works right now. The values are correct, but it seems the units are off, so I would have to like change that, right? But this is basically how the simulation backend works. It's not anything fancy right now. See, it works hand in hand with the middleware, the node classes and the components, the way I store them. So it's based on that tuple nature, like saying that this terminal, this component is connected to this particular node. Like that's what gives me all the information over there, right? Now from the simulation backend, I want to show you guys what actually happens when I click on this, like when a person clicks on the simulation button, right? So on the canvas here, there is an unsimulate button click, which is essentially a slot that I created because the window would be sending out signals whenever that button is clicked, right? So when that button is clicked, I basically create an instance of the simulator class, like I said, and call the simulate function. Then I get a result and take the result, right? Then with the result, I set the simulated node voltages and I set simulated components. And these two functions basically go through the nodes and add the results of the simulation to it. And then this basically does the same thing. This goes through the nodes and add the results of this goes through the components. The first one goes through the nodes, the second one goes through the components and add the simulation result to it. The components have like currents flowing through them, so usually their results is current, but as nodes have voltages, so the result that I store in the nodes is the voltage, right? That's basically what happens there, right? Then I also added a couple of functionalities like selecting a component and not selecting a component. Those were quite easy to do, just like to my general components. Where is it? General component. Just like in my general components, all I had to do was to make sure I have these signals by component selected and component deselected, and then make sure that I set the flag that the component can be simulated. Using this graphics item allows me to do that. And whenever they are selected, the component selected, I basically send out a signal that the components have been selected. And that is what the attributes pane used to display information about that component. And that is what you use to know that, oh, this is a component that's selected. So the canvas basically keeps track of selected components. Where is it? The canvas keeps track of selected component IDs, and whenever you maybe click on delete, for instance, and it receives a signal that delete has been clicked, it basically deletes that component from the canvas. Like, those things are out there, right? So those are like, should I say, minor functionalities I decided to add. But the other major thing that I did was to work on the attributes pane, right? So the attributes pane is what allows you to it's what allows you to tweak the parameters, or these are parameters, should I say the parameters? It's what allows you to have control over the values of the components. So for instance, if I add a resistor component and I click on it, here you can see that the resistor component has like an attribute R and the unit over there. Like, if there were more attributes, I would have actually added them. But what I'm trying to say is that the attributes pane is what allows me to say that, oh, I can change this to maybe, I don't know, 10 kilo ohms, and then it will reflect on the resistor, and that would be used in simulation and everything, because in the previous video we added a data attribute to the particular component. So it's basically easy to like change that data attribute every single time, right? It makes sense, right? So my attributes pane, I've not actually figured out the design, but I figured this is okay, right? So I created a component preview, which basically displays the components over there. Then the ID of the component, and sort of like delete button over here, which you can click to delete the component. Essentially, there isn't anything fancy about it, right? When you select the component, the rest is the attributes pane, right? The actual attribute side, which shows that various attributes of that component and the value and the units that you can tweak it to make it your own, right? Then there's actually supposed to be a simulation result at the bottom over here, but I've not completed that yet. I mean, I've completed it, but because I've not done any simulation in here, you wouldn't really find it. But in case I was to like do simulation, right? Let's say all. Let's go to all. I have a resistor, voltage source, and a ground. I believe that's what I need to actually do simulation. So let's say I select my wire to connect this to this, this to this, and this to this. Then I decide to simulate. What that gives me like a 10 volt this nowhere. But then if I click on these components, now I should be able to like see the simulation result. So it says that the current flowing through this is 0.1, which is actually correct because this is a 10 volts and this is 100 kilo ohm, right? But that 0.1 should be in milliamps, but it's actually showing amps, and that's what I was saying, that the unit's kind of off about it. But it sort of shows the simulation results also. And I was thinking of actually adding some sort of log thing at the bottom over here where I print out certain information to it, like simulating circuit simulation field, those kind of things, and something that would give the user a sort of like information about what is going on. But I've not figured out how to do that yet. I'll do that in the next couple of videos, I guess. But for now, this is like how our app is functioning, right? So if we go back into the attributes pane and see the actual code I write, isn't anything fancy. I'm using a vertical box layout because everything has to be in vertically aligned, or however you want to call it. Signals, of course, selected components to actually keep track of the components that's selected. And I created a utility function over here for clearing the layout whenever the component is deselected, right? This sort of uses recursion, which I had to figure out, and I'm so happy about it because I am happy when I use recursion or any of those data structures to actually do something. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is why I'm learning it, right? It makes a lot of sense for me, right? So what I've done is that there is a function that creates the preview section, and that function utilizes the creates preview component, which basically takes the components that has been selected and creates a copy of it. So it creates like the same thing of the same class. So whatever class is there, it creates another instance of it and then sets some flags like you can't move it, you can't select it over there. But then I basically create a scene and then display that components that are created on the scene. It's not anything fancy. And then I create the ID section, which is the ID, the component ID, and the button to actually do the delete. I added icons to the button to make it nice. I feel like the app is looking better now, right? Yes, actually, we'll talk about how I did the styling in a bit, but let's finish this. So the function to handle the deletes, and then the attribute section also. So I basically take the data section and I use a for loop to display all the data there and change it based on, and change it based on what happens, right? And there's also simulation results, the same thing. I use a for loop to go through the results and display it over there for you to have make changes. Then I have a utility function over here to get me units for some properties. Like if the property is voltage, the unit is either volts or kilovolts. For price resistance, the unit is ohms or kilo ohms. I mean, I should actually add more units to this, right? But I'll figure out the units thing, why it is not, why it is not matching what's actually passed. So if the simulation is actually, like my components were using kilo ohms and volts, but then the result is supposed to be in milliamps, right? But then it ends up being in amps, which doesn't really add up, right? That's basically it. If the component is deselected, I clear the layout. If the component is selected, I take it and then do the same thing basically. So create a preview section, create the ID section, create the attribute section, add a stretch to push everything up. It's not anything fancy with attributes pane, right? And one thing you would notice is that the attributes pane now has, if you look at the top, the initial setup, it has a styles file, right? So QSS is what they are calling it, but it's essentially CSS. But it allows you to, what pyqt allows you to do is to add your own style sheet to the components that you have built. So I created style sheets for each of the components. I created a style sheet for the whole app, created a style sheet for, So I created a style sheet for the whole app, added it here. I created a style sheet for each of the sessions, but there's no style sheet for the canvas, but there's style sheets for the attributes pane and the components pane. So inside our styles, the app styles are here. Basically give some nice CSS for each of them. So like a Q widget is supposed to have this, Q line edit, on focus, and all of this. I mean, there's anything fancy, right? Like the toolbar and all of those things. Normal CSS that we know, how the delete button looks like, and little things, right? Right now, I've not actually finished designing the app because I really hate CSS, and now there's QSS. I mean, QSS is basically CSS, which I hate, and I don't know what to do about it. But I have to make the app nice, right? So I'll figure out how to actually write CSS and make the app nice. But for now, I want to focus on functionality. Now, next thing I want to do is to actually redo the node thing again. Now, it's always about keeping track of the nodes because I think that's the most important part of the app. And keeping track of the nodes ends up being related to drawing of lines, drawing of the wires. And that's the major problem, right? Right now, if you go to the app, if I open the app and you look at the app, you realize that in order to draw a line, you'd it's just a straight line that you end up drawing. Like if you click on the wire tool and you draw a line from here to here, it's basically a straight line, right? And if I delete this component, right, and I delete this component, then the line is there. I can't even select the line because I didn't really do the line well. I mean, I didn't do the line well, and it doesn't really add up. Like, line is supposed to be drawn, click, then you can drag and trace a path, and it's be like vertical, horizontal to make the circuit very nice. Right now it's just a straight line, and now it's left on the same. Nothing to do about it. So it's always comes back to taking care of the nodes, keeping track of the nodes, and how I am going to deal with the wire connections. Like, I think that's the most important thing, and that's what I'll be doing from now, like from now to I finish this project, because I want to like redo the wire component. If you look at my wire component right here, I think it's really messy. Go to the component, wire component. I feel like there's a lot of brute forcing in here to actually get it to work, but I want to make it better. So I want to figure out another way of keeping track of the components movements, make sure that the wires are connected, and being able to actually let the user trace the path of the wire. And that's like the plan for the next couple of days. But for now, guys, here's what I have been up to for the 3 days that I've been off from you guys. But I have to keep you guys updated. I'm actually very happy that we're able to do this. Like, I can search components. I can search components by name or category. What was there to say, right? But then, like, it's really nice. And this section of components that I implemented it is like in the app. I'll leave a link to the repository in the description. Y'all can go and have a look at it. You lot, let me not try. Let me not jinx it. So guys, that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy the video, you know what to do. If you're new around here and you really want to like interact with me, just tweet to me and we'll interact. If anything else, subscribe to the channel. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So yeah, thanks. Cheers. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.